Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting held on Friday, September 7th, 2018 at 9:30 a.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Freeholder Graham will be absent. Freeholder Lazaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo. Here. Freeholder Director Rose.
Present.
Freeholder Yardley.
Here. I have a moment of silence and salute the flag, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice is defined by Section 3D of Chapter 231, PL 1975 has been made by regular mail. Such notice being submitted on June 13, 2018 from the Administrative Center of the County of Sussex, located at 1 Spring Street, New Jersey, to the following: New Jersey Herald, New Jersey Sunday Herald, Star Ledger, WSUS Radio, WNHJ Radio. It is also posted on the bulletin board maintained in the Administrative Center for Public Announcements. Has been submitted to the Sussex County Clerk in compliance with said act. Can I have approval of the agenda?
I make the motion. Second.
Motion by Yardley, second by
Lazaro.
all right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. We have to do this as a formal meeting because we have a quorum here this morning, so that's for the formalities. Apologize for that. Thank you, everyone, for coming here this morning. We have some representatives here that we'd like to have a brief 5-minute presentations, and then we want to have some back and forth with you to hear if there's anything that the county can do for you or that you have some problems that the county might be able to solve. If you would just raise your hand as I call your name. We have Sandy Myers from the Sussex County Soil Conservation District here this morning. I know there's been some issues, so we're going to have some discussion there. And as people give presentations, feel free to just ask questions or whatever needs to be done. Let's make this very informal. Let's have a dialogue. I'm trying to this is the first time we've done this. And my thought is that I'm trying to model this after what Senator Oroho does when he has those meetings, so just a free-flowing dialogue back and forth. Christine Florio, Division Director, Department of Health and Human Services. We have Paige Lockburner from Mosquito Control. Paige will not be giving a presentation, but she's here to answer any questions we have. Will Porter, Library Director. Bill Kopenall, County Engineer. Melissa Rockwell, Tax Administrator. And Elka Yetter, Treasurer. So with that, let's start with the presentations. We'll start with the Sussex County Soil Conservation District Manager, Sandy Myers. Now Sandy has to leave 10-ish?
Like 10:30.
10:30, okay. So if we have questions for her, because politicians, we all like to talk, we'll probably run past our hour allotment. So let's ask the questions now because she has to get down to Warren County. So, okay, she's going down to the hinterlands.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, as you know now, my name is Sandra Myers. I'm the new manager for Sussex County Soil Conservation. I've been there about 2 months now, but I have also been working for Warren County District for the past 10 years. The 2 districts now have a shared services agreement, so that's why I'm up here in Sussex. Just a brief overview. First of all, I know it's a little confusing. Sussex District is not part of the Sussex County government. It's actually a special purpose subdivision of the New Jersey Department of Agriculture. We have our volunteer 5-member board, which actually has 1 vacancy now, so if anyone has any interest, we're looking to fill that position also. The board is seen over by the State Soil Conservation Committee, which is also under the Department of Agriculture. They're made up of districts across the state. DEP, Rutgers, NRCS, FSA, all have a seat on that committee. Our purpose is to actually administer the New Jersey Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Act, which very basically says anybody disturbing greater than 5,000 square feet of soil for non-agricultural purposes has to have an engineer or architect design, and then we have to review a soil erosion and sediment control plan. And then throughout the project, we send an inspector out there to make sure that they're abiding by that plan. Unfortunately, and I know it's an issue up here, we can't restrict people from taking soil off their property or bringing soil onto their property as long as they get an approved plan with the district and it's following the state standards, that's all that we're allowed to enforce. Basically, that's it. I'm up here 2 days a week. I try to be here Mondays and Fridays. So if anyone has any questions, I have the general email for the Sussex District now, which is on our website, or you can give me a call there.
If I can jump in here quickly, in your packets in front of you, Greg has provided some ordinances that he has used to good effect to control soil movement in various towns, not just in Sussex County, but other places as well, because as Sandy just mentioned, there's some limitation on the enforcement they can do. So we provided some ordinances there that may be a model if you're having some issues in your town that may be able to help with that. And I think, Vernon is probably on the forefront of this issue. Yeah.
So one of the issues, as you mentioned, if the property has a larger disturbance of 5,000 square feet, which is what we've been dealing with for years. And that's what the stop work order that was issued in 2014 was for, and was requesting that this property owner provide a plan, which he has not. So our temporary restraining order that we were trying to seek was to have him was to enforce that stop work order. The judge denied it because he could not determine what section of the 4 acres the 5,000 square foot covered. It made no sense to me. But so that's what we're dealing with. So what you're saying, as far as a property owner needing to provide a plan if it's over 5,000 square feet, that's exactly what we're dealing with. And we've been dealing with this, some of the property owners will tell you they've been dealing with this issue since 2009.
Okay.
But so what you're saying you can do, we're still not seeing any relief. And we've tried, we've been to court, we were in municipal court the other day, and this particular individual, his attorney is out ill, once again. So we're not getting anything through the state, through the courts, or anything. It's just like, it's this virtual, wheel that we're like gerbils. We're just spinning on this wheel. And, we're not seeing any relief. And I know it's affecting other municipalities. We see the trucks, we hear the people, we hear residents, we're getting phone calls from other municipalities. So it's just getting, arms and legs.
Sandy, how does the enforcement work? Like, where is the division of work there? Like, do you have an enforcement arm or?
No, we're not like DEP. We can't find. I know when there's only certain amount of information I can say about
this
Vernon in
particular
particular.
case. Let's talk more in
Yeah.
general so we don't, we are on the record here as being reported.
If we come across somebody that is disturbed greater than 5,000 square feet, which first is a little more difficult too, because legally we're not allowed to enter a property unless there already is a plan. So we can't just send an inspector on to measure and walk onto anybody's property. So if he's looking at it from the road and you can tell it's greater than 5,000, then the board will typically issue a stop work order. That basically says you have to come, you don't have a plan, you have to come to us and get a plan. In a perfect world, they'll walk right in with a plan and we can review it, and as long as it matches the standards, then it's approved and they can continue with their work. Because we can never, we're not like land use, we can't stop anybody from doing any type of work at all. They just have to have a plan, and it has to be an approved plan. Now, if they don't have an approved plan and they don't get an approved plan, then it's up to the board's decision whether or not they want to file a lawsuit. And I guess that's what happened. Vernon stuff was long before my time, so I'm told that's what happened there.
So when you say the board, what?
Soil Conservation District.
Right, to enforce your own order.
Yes.
Okay. And how does that decision get made, if you don't mind asking?
I'm not sure in Sussex. I've only been there 2 months, and I don't know how they came to that decision to do that.
Well, what I just heard, your board didn't. It was the town of making.
No, there's a law. The district has a lawsuit. That's why I can't speak to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No. I mean, I can't. Like I said, I've only been here 2 months, and it all happened before my time, so I don't know a lot of
It's
answers.
still happening.
And it's current.
I can explain it if you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just not go into
Well, you know what?
specifics.
But maybe,
You don't have to
Let's
go
talk
into
into
specifics.
general.
and this
Sure.
is actually Alison LaRocca, our zoning
I'm the
officer.
zoning officer that's
Who
been
lives and
dealing with
breathes
this. This is what I deal with every single day with our residents. I mean, Vernon Township is being invaded, and a lot of other towns are, and whether you know it or not, you are being dumped on. And it's construction debris from New York City that's coming into our towns, all of our towns. And it's hard to stop. At 3 Silver Spruce Drive, we have anywhere from 10 to 30 tri-axle trucks every single day. I don't mean
Again, I
on
would just
weekdays, I mean
caution you
every
to not
single
be
day.
specific with things.
Okay, well, it's what we deal with every single day. It's coming to our residential neighborhood on a dirt road where kids are walking to the school bus and passing tri-axle trucks that are lined up to get onto this property. This is a 2-acre, 75-foot tall mountain, and yet the DEP finds nothing wrong with it. Sussex County Soils issued a stop work order in 2014 on this property. 2017, Cliff London came in and signed summonses against the property owner. Hey, you're violating the stop work order, you haven't done your soil and sediment plan. We then went to trial. We
In
had the
municipal
trial.
court.
Excuse me?
In municipal court.
In municipal
Right.
court in Vernon Township.
Okay.
So in May of 2018, just a few months ago, the property owner was found guilty and fined $75,000. The judge at that time made quite a statement, and he said, this is an environmental disaster. And yet our Department of Environmental Protection finds nothing wrong with it. Unfortunately for Vernon Township, Cliff London did retire, and now we've had 0 contact at all with Sussex County Soils. Sandy did have an appointment to come up and view the property from the neighbor's property. Got a phone call, left a message, she couldn't make it. I've left 3 phone calls, multiple emails, nothing. So as far as we're concerned, we feel like we're out in the cold again. And we're just looking for help. So you gotta say to yourselves, well, where does Vernon go from here when Sussex County Soils won't help us, when DEP won't help us? Well, guess what, guys? Here I am. I'm Allison from Vernon Township Zoning, and I'm asking for help. We need help. And as much as it's affecting us, it's gonna affect all of your towns, all of your towns.
Alex,
You're all
We've
getting it.
heard from a number of other towns. We had an on-the-road meeting in Montague that there was some issues in Montague. I think Wantage said that there was some issues. So we're aware that, or we're hearing that this is not just happening in Vernon,
Right,
which
it's
is why we
not.
presented those ordinances to you.
We passed an ordinance.
So you have ordinance violations?
We do, and I'm writing summonses every single day. I write a summons every single day. We're going back to court. Sussex County Soils wrote 4 summonses. The first 2 summonses he wrote, Cliff only encompassed a certain time frame. So when we went to trial, the judge actually pointed out and said, hey, you guys, when you wrote the summonses, Mr. London, you did write them wrong. You only encompassed this amount of time. So the prosecutor said to Cliff, go back and rewrite 2 more summonses encompassing this set of time. So you guys actually, Sussex County Soils goes to trial, I don't even know if you guys know this, in the middle of October for your second set of summonses that were written by Mr. London on this property owner for violating the stop work order.
It's not our soil group. They're independent of the freeholders and the
Okay.
community.
state
See, I
agency.
So
right.
when you're saying us, it's not us. They're, as she said,
She's
they're
independent.
They're independent, and I think that's where there's some communications. From what I'm hearing from the story, is that there's a communications problem between the municipalities and the soil conservation. Who is the attorney that handles the prosecution for any violation? Because I don't want to talk about your
Sure.
situation.
I can't speak to any violation. I can
No,
only-
no.
No, I mean, I can only tell you
Yeah.
the name of the one attorney I'm dealing with, because right now Sussex only uses this one attorney.
Well,
So who's,
the-
it's Bill
the-
Haggerty.
Oh, it's Bill Haggerty?
Yeah, Bill Haggerty.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, not a DAG, they don't?
They won't help us. They won't help any district. No, we don't have support from DAG.
Cindy, one interesting thing that just happened here is it was said solid waste. Someone just said that,
Yep.
which of course triggers a different set of rules. What is the difference between trucking in soil and trucking in solid waste. And I don't mean that as a, I mean as a serious question. I mean, because, you know, he may say it's, or some, you know, somebody may say it's just soil, and another person may say, no, it's solid waste. What's the difference, and what could trigger an action that would be?
It would just have to be, I guess, more predominantly soil for it to be soil. We don't do anything with concrete, asphalt. If there's any type of garbage mixed in, that's not what we can do
What would
anything about.
constitute garbage? Like, is some concrete block considered garbage?
For us, yeah.
It would be.
But that's not,
That would be a DEP issue.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
a DEP
statutory
issue.
definition in Title 13.
Okay.
What if building materials are included in that?
That's not
Pieces
soil.
of wood from the side of the building?
Is there a
It's
percentage,
not
like it has to
soil.
hit 5% of total volume, or is it just that if there's any in there, it's now building?
There's nothing in the standards that says a percentage.
Because there was a time at which they were taking building materials and running them through a grinder and combining them with soil and taking the whole thing. And DEP came in and examined the material and said, oh, wait, this is not soil, this is a combination of things, and made it clear a lot, take everything out. So I don't know if that still exists. This was quite a while ago.
That authority,
But
the authority to do that with the DEP, that still exists.
somebody may have built a line.
Right.
Sandy,
Remember that?
You
Years
said
ago.
you didn't have the authority to go on the property. What department has the authority to go on the property?
So anybody does, you get a search warrant.
Yeah.
It's an administrative search warrant.
Okay, so the local
You
government.
don't just go out there and go on the property,
that.
especially if you want to search
We've
and you
actually
want
tried that.
and you want to dig.
Right.
They're not hard to get. You can call a judge and get one in a half an hour.
And
I'm
we
serious.
seem to, yeah, our prosecutor's
us.
working on that. But besides that fact, you know, it's 2 acres and 75 feet tall. You don't have to go on the property to see it.
Right.
I can assure you,
And
you can see.
tell them the size of his lot.
And it's a 4-acre lot.
She should put tunnels in it and make,
You could, you know, it's
Make it a
it's
tourist
unbelievable.
attraction.
And I just want to, you know, I know we're not talking about anyone specific, I get it, but this particular property owner was pled guilty last year in Orange County for dumping over 1,000 truckloads of contaminated soil in Orange County. Pled guilty, still paying the fines. He's
Well, that's
now
an interesting
doing it in
question,
Sussex
Sandy.
County.
Is there any standards for like soil cleanliness or anything like that?
They're all DEP.
That would be,
nothing to
that's
do-
not soil conservation?
not at all.
That would be just DEP.
So-
No, we can't look into contamination or anything like that at all whatsoever.
So you're just dealing with soil
Soil
disturbance?
erosion, yeah, soil erosion, that's it.
Who would test the water seeping out from underneath this pile, running across a private driveway into the wetlands? It's clearly, you can just see it running out. Who would test that?
Who owns the wetlands?
Right now, it's a private resident, then it runs into state and federal wildlife preserves. And it'll make its way to Lake Wallkill, which is another privately owned lake. But the water runs right out, and we've had permission before to go right there on the private property from the homeowner, not the person who's being accused, to sample this water.
Has the homeowner run a water test?
Which
No,
homeowner?
No, the homeowner across the street, the water seeping onto, has he run a water test?
Let's say I have information that could be 5 times the acceptable lead
They
level,
should
and
immediately report it to the DEP.
he does not want to go public.
Well, he should just immediately report it to the DEP.
Yeah, 1-800-WARN-DEP.
Yeah,
Oh,
'cause
they're
they've
about,
been-
you know how
they've
much
been so great to
cooperation
us
we've
so
had
far.
with the DEP?
They've been very
Nothing.
cooperative environment with the dump site that we've had through the years. They've been
Have you?
on
You know
top
what, we'll
of
take
it.
any information that you have, and we would love to talk to that person, because we seem to running into brick walls wherever we go.
And Warren has been helping that as well.
have you been working with Steve and how?
Steve gave us a letter, yes.
Josh has been
Support.
great, Josh
Steve was
Gottlieb
on
has
the
been
phone with
great.
the DEP, with Congressman Gottheimer, with probably about 6 representatives of the DEP, saying, what is probable cause? I haven't known what probable cause, I taught it for 17 years in the police academy.
You have.
It's clearly probable cause when you see chunks of asphalt, concrete, rebar, PVC, all coming out of this pile, bricks, and the DEP did nothing. Because I've been saying, let's get a administrative warrant. I could write one up, like you said, in a half hour I'd have a warrant written up. No one will do anything to help us. No one.
We don't understand why. Really, I don't understand why.
I even went to the Highlands Council.
2 acre and 75 feet tall. Can you even? Can you help us?
And there, well, I'm just saying, it's not even so much to help, but putting pressure on, like, how do we get through to the DEP?
They've ignored both Congressman Gottheimer and Senator Orho. Both were on the phone, both were very intelligent people, and they said, this is clear. Any reasonable person can see there's a violation here.
But put a plank over a stream, and they'll be right there.
That's
You're
right.
right, you're right.
Talk to DCF. You talk to DCF.
No, I haven't done, I've gone to Highlands, DEP, Congressman Gottheimer's gone to the EPA. DCA, I don't know what kind of jurisdiction they would have there.
What the EPA say?
They're not responding either. Because we're looking now, it's coming out of New York City. We just averted another truck accident where the brakes were on fire last
Literally
week.
on
Admitted
fire.
they were going to Silver Spruce with a load of bricks
Our fire marshal.
out of the Bronx.
Out of the Bronx, out of a recycling center in the Bronx. We've got
So-
truckers that
so
tell us
that's
they're coming from
interstate.
College Point in Yonkers.
It's an interstate transport,
Kevin
isn't
and
there
Greg,
a,
can you tell us a little bit about how the enforcement of solid waste rules work within the county? Because that changed a few years ago about what agency was enforcing that.
Well, I'm trying to be quiet, because if I get started, I'm not gonna, look, this is historically, when I was in the county prosecutor's office, it was the first job I had in the 70s, this has been a problem of the people dumping things up here. Now, the jurisdictional issue, the way it goes, the prosecutor's office really does, local people, prosecutor's offices don't get involved in this. For the state to be honest about it, the attorney general, they don't want to come up here. They're 2.5 hours from here. They're not coming. The federal government, it's too small for them. This is the perfect place to do this, and that's why it always happened. And so my personal opinion only, which I'm trying not to influence this, is if it's in your town, and I've done this as a town attorney, I actually got an injunction against Wild West City. Excuse me, it was Waterloo, where someone died at a concert. We went into court and we got that injunction. I've done it gotten search warrants, gone onto property in Frankfurt years ago with bulldozers and backhoes and geologists and test things, and ran into court and gotten an injunction. My personal opinion is, if it's happening in your town, you gotta do it with your ordinances and your own people.
We already filed that.
And I know you did,
Hearing in
but
May of 2019.
but it seemed interesting, Lauren, because it seemed like you were trying to enforce their stop work order.
We were.
Instead of your own-
We were
in your
trying
own-
to get them to enforce their stop work order.
And you couldn't do it, which
uh,
just goes back to my point, that it was
Right.
We were told we
unfortunately.
had to enforce it locally.
yes.
Right.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately, if it's
locally-
happening in your town, you're stuck with it, you
So
gotta,
locally, we're sent to Morristown. and the
Well, that's our
said-
judge. That's our
But I'm
chancery
reali-
judge.
But
That's our
we're being
court.
sent out of the county, and we're not getting, like I said, that was all we asked.
And why'd you
And
get
we
sent
were-
out of the
we were-
county?
no, it's not, it's our chancery
Oh,
court,
yeah,
our
yeah,
prerogative
Morris,
writ,
that's
our prerogative writ courses, we're in a joint system
Right.
with Morris. So our chancery court is in Morris.
And all we were asking
Right.
for was a restraining order to get the property owner to provide the plan. That's all. We weren't,
So the judge said the stop work order doesn't encompass the whole property. So we went back to Sussex County Soils and
Right.
said, please get us a stop work order that encompasses the whole property. And I get that almost seems redundant, but that's what this guy is asking for.
and the line
And we haven't
block is
gotten it
on.
yet.
What local ordinance do you have for soil movement?
I don't have the number in front of me, but
No,
we
but-
just actually passed it.
It can't be
Well,
permitted in
That's,
residential
that, so
zones.
that.
Correct,
so-
it's not, so.
So
Probably the right
that, so
to
that,
do.
that's the issue then, is that you need to take action under the
have.
local
We have.
ordinance.
Yeah, we
If you,
will.
well, you just said that you just adopted the ordinance.
No, in April.
In April, May?
Okay.
April, May, it finally
And
came
He's
through.
gotten a number of tickets under that.
But
And-
4055D-19 says
Because the attorney
injunctive
said
relief
And
for
on
ordinance
Tuesday,
violation.
and on Tuesday, we were in court, but it was postponed again.
And this is like 3
Because
months
his
of
attorney is
postponed
ill.
because Marty's sick, and I get that. But his attorney has cancer, so they keep adjourning it. They keep saying, we're gonna have court on this date. So this is almost 2.5 months. So we get there and they say, oh, the attorney called in and he's blah, 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 blah today, so we're gonna cancel again. So we're kind of asking the judge, well, how long does that go on for? Like, I get that he's sick, I feel, well, geez, whatever, horrible. But how long does this guy get a free ride because his attorney's sick? When does that come to an end too? Like, it just seems like every which way we turn, we're getting it, you know what I mean?
I'm looking to do this in Vernon next year with the budget. But perhaps the county should consider this, because it's affecting our whole county. And they're using the county roadways to transport. It's to start a weight team. A trained weight team that understands the federal laws, the DOT laws, because municipal police officers are not trained in this. The scales run about probably 10,000 an axle on each side, so you're going to spend $60,000 to $70,000 for the weights, portable weights. You're going to have at least 2 officers trained, so let's say with benefits and everything, it's going to be another $100,000. But first, you'll make the road safe. You'll save money on the wear and tear on our property, on our roads throughout the county, because they're using the county roadways to come into Vernon. And you will make up the revenue when you catch these trucks illegally. The fines are in the thousands of dollars, especially if they're over there. But they'll look at the manifest, they'll check those DOT numbers, which now we have allegations. They're forged, they're fraudulent, but a regular municipal police officer doesn't know that. They're not trained in these matters, and they don't have jurisdiction over it. There may be some consideration municipal police officers can't even do this, even though they're trained. It has to come from a state and a county level. This would be a well worth investment by the county to protect the people and the roadways to stop this. I really would ask you to look at this in next year's budget, to give the money to the sheriff, let him have people trained and get the portable scales, and let's go after the people who are invading us.
What about the state police?
State police only want to do state highways. There's only 2 units.
They don't want
We
to
need
come
to do
on
the
our
county
side
roads.
Right.
This is actually a good approach, and if you annoy these guys, they won't come here.
Big dollars.
And that's what Sparta's very good at that.
They've done a great job.
I know.
But thank you, sorry to monopolize.
All right, well, let's
Yeah.
jump on to that. Are we good with this topic?
Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
thank you.
again,
And again, in front of you is some copies of some ordinances that have been used to good effect in other towns. You may want to review them.
So I have one question. And so it's much simpler. It has to do with erosion and sediment control. So in Byron, we've had some issues with property owners. Maybe they're doing construction, maybe they have planned, maybe they don't. Maybe they're just replanting their front yard. And then it rains, and lots of mud goes down the road into a storm drain, into a C1, stream. What authority does your organization or your group have to do anything about that?
The only time we have any authority is if they have a plan. So if it's something under 5,000 square feet, we can go out there and tell them they should have silt fence up or something protecting or get that stabilized, but since they don't have to have a plan, then we can't do anything beyond that. If they don't want to listen.
How do we change that? Because I think that is a huge problem that's kind of glossed over, because it's 1,000 square feet there, 2,000 square feet there, happens over there next week, happens there next year, and over time, over 50 or 100 years, you lose 3 feet to the bottom of Lake Lackawanna because of sediment. So
It would be through the adoption or amendment of local soil erosion sediment control ordinance.
That's municipality?
Absolutely, yeah. The jurisdiction rests with you.
So then we would give ourselves essentially authority to investigate? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, you have. Yeah,
And
you have-
penalize.
Yeah, those ordinances cover, Tom and I have worked with those ordinances over the years, and you have the authority to set the thresholds by which permits are required, and then based upon those permits, very similar to what the Soil Conservation District does, you require plans. Those plans will require certain controls to be put in place. So it's really the tolerance that the municipality has for what the threshold is and what you're going to require.
Right.
And you'll see there's gradations within those ordinances. If it's under such and such, square footage, nothing's required. If it's between a certain amount, usually the town engineer will be given the authority to review and sign off for certain controls. And then over a certain threshold, which may not be the state threshold, but then over a certain threshold can even require town council approval. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Who would you say that has more strict or, that, I mean, these are the three?
Yeah, those three are good. The two are from jurisdictions that I've worked in, Rockaway Township, Randolph Township. You'll notice that both towns handled it a little bit differently. The other one came through from North Brunswick, which actually came to us via the state through our Division of Health. And the North Brunswick ordinance is interesting because it places testing requirements on the permittee. So if you're interested, if you're interested, when you talk about that, the issue of testing materials that are brought on site, North Brunswick actually addresses that in their ordinance and places the responsibility on the person taking out the permit. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
All right.
They're testing the soil before it gets dumped, or?
Usually because of the certification, as I've seen before.
Yeah. There's different ways of doing it, and your town engineer could guide you on that. You'd have to look at what North Brunswick has done. I can't say that I'm familiar with that, but it would require that a certification.
Well, it holds them accountable if they have to test it, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Because there's an engineer certified
and that they've been put on notice that if you're bringing this material into our jurisdiction, you have a requirement to demonstrate that this is clean fill.
Right, if they violate the ordinance, then it goes to, like, let's say a wetlands or some kind of toxic substance, it becomes a DEP issue.
Well, you'd have enforcement under the local ordinance.
Right.
You know, so whatever agent of the municipality has been designated to enforce that, they would then have the right to file a summons in municipal court. You know, if there were things then found that would then subject them to other state regulations, then yes, the DEP might be.
Yeah, it takes a while to get there, though, you know.
It does, except for the fact that if you have the local ordinance, you can take action on that irrespective of whatever spills over to.
Right.
And you can also
another
gather
jurisdiction.
evidence that you then hand to DEP, and we know how the state is maybe a little bit lazy, and now if you hand them everything, and they may be more apt to take action quickly if they have everything on a silver platter.
Yeah, we had a couple dumping issues, and I heard something about cement and bricks.
Yep.
Which, in my understanding, is actually a soil, because it breaks down into, you're shaking your head no?
Not that we regulate.
Okay, well, then there needs to be more coordination between DEP and you and everybody else, because there must be a disconnect, because the word I got is that cement and bricks, because they can break down over time, actually becomes a soil item and may not in fact be a violation.
That has a little familiarity with that.
Well, I'm not an expert.
No,
I'm just-
I believe you're correct, and that's where situations that develop when people are dumping, and you'll see brick, concrete, stone, things of that nature.
Right.
That's considered a solid, where wood breaks down, or stumps, trees, very dangerous, because we've had an incident where a kid was in the backyard and just went down underneath and died. So I think that the definition is, you have to look at the DEP definition of that. Because, I live in Stillwater. We've had a farm there at one time, and I called about it, and had their permits, and it was legal to put pieces of concrete that they were ripping up off a highway. I think and I'm not the expert in this, so I'm going to qualify that, but the pavement, the oil-based stuff.
Right, the asphalt.
The asphalt.
Asphalt,
Our zoning officer just relayed to me that if the cement and bricks don't have contaminants,
Right.
it actually becomes a soil item because of degradation of the item over time.
All right, I'd like to thank Sandy for coming here this morning. Thank you very much. In case you don't know, we have coffee and food out in the hall here, so you can leave this way and come back in over here if you want to grab something to eat or something to drink.
Like a 2-minute break so they can get their coffee and stuff.
Just get up.
You want to just
Yeah,
get up and
we're
go?
already running pretty late, so let's keep talking. Christine Florio, as head of, or division director, Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi everyone.
Feel free to get up and get the food if you want it.
I just wanted to talk to you about one of one of the campaigns we recently adopted. The Freeholders actually passed a resolution in July of 2017. It is in your packet, so you can see that. It's called the Campaign to Change Direction, and it's an anti-stigma campaign for mental health. So what we're asking, if you would be willing to pass a resolution in your municipality supporting this campaign. And what this campaign is about is really changing the conversation about mental health, treating it just like any other health condition. So if you see someone suffering, there are signs in your packet. If you see someone suffering from a mental health condition, don't be afraid to reach out to them. There's actually a paper in your packet with tips and information on how to approach someone if someone walks into your municipal building or you know someone that may be suffering from a mental health condition. There are some tips outlined in your packet to talk to someone and really encourage treatment, encourage care for someone. It can work with youth, it can work with adults, it really is for all ages. And there's plenty of information in your packet. We have handouts, we have posters. We can also come to your municipal building to do a presentation if you'd like. You can always reach out to me, and I have cards up here. We can talk to your town council members. We can actually get you materials and posters to put in your municipal building. And we're also working with the local schools to try to get the information out to the schools. We're giving out information to all the high school students to not be afraid to talk about mental health if they feel like they need to talk to someone, to not be afraid to reach out for help. And we're also working with all of the county libraries to maybe start like a youth coffee house type model for youth who may be suffering from mental health conditions or just be able to talk about it. So
Christine, what specifically would this program, how would they interface with it? Would they bring it to a school, or would they would it?
If they could, and there is a copy of the resolution in your packet on the right-hand side. It is a national campaign, so on the website, which all the information is in there, changedirection.org, it lists every single state that's come on board, it lists every single municipality that comes on board. So we're really asking you to join us in this effort. We can put your municipality on the website, as well as once you pass a resolution, it's really being more aware of the 5 signs of emotional suffering, which there is a bookmark in your packet, and it kind of explains what to look for. So if you adopted a resolution, it would show your residents as well that you're supporting this campaign. You're a resource for them, so that if someone does walk into your municipal building or you know someone, you can give them this card. There's also a brochure in here for all mental health and substance abuse services. You can refer someone to treatment, or you can refer them to call us as well. There's also a county website, and if you go on here, it is in the information. If you go on the county website, it lists all resources as well that you can connect your residents to, all mental health resources and substance abuse resources. So I think if you pass a resolution, you're really showing your town and your residents that, it's okay to talk about mental health. If you need help, reach out for someone just like you would if you had any other health condition. Not be afraid to talk about it.
Thank you, Christine.
The other program I wanted to just talk about was the Adult Protective Services Program. That's run through the Division of Social Services, and that is also in your packet. You'll see right here. This is for anyone who's 18 and older who maybe has some kind of incapacity, whether it's a mental health issue or a severe disability, or maybe they're unable to care for themselves, or you feel like maybe someone in your town or one of your residents is being abused, neglected, exploited. You can make a referral to social services, and they will do assessments. They can even get a court order if someone's being exploited. And sometimes with older adults, you'll have a family member that maybe is abusing an older adult in their family, or exploiting, or maybe financial exploitation or some kind of neglect. You can make that referral to social services, and they will come out and do an assessment. So that's also in your packet. I also just wanted to introduce Paige Lockburner. She's from Mosquito Control. Am I saying that right? Okay. Paige is not going to speak today, as Freeholder Director Rose said, but there is going to be a health forum on October 11th at the college I believe it's at 8:30, is the breakfast. So you will get information on that October 11th at the college, and it will be based on all health information. The Division of Health is running that. So I'm sure it's important for all of you to attend. If you do have any questions, though, Paige is here.
Is Paige's contact info in the package? Just because I was mayor of Sussex for a while, and mosquito control is one of those areas that brings out an interesting group of people sometimes. And so it's not on our side. So
You've never been bit.
Sometimes there are questions that a member of the public might have, and it's nice to have a resource to say, here's the answer to that, and that's the resources page. So is her contact info?
Well, you'll be there on October 11th, correct?
And
We'll have to make sure we have all of that information available to the municipalities on October 11th.
I was just going to add that the county website, there are tremendous resources on the Division of Mosquito Control. So you certainly can access that. It's really easy to find if you just type in mosquito in the search bar on the website. It'll pull up all kinds of information. Probably to a level of detail that you're not interested in, but there's a lot of there's a lot of material there, and Paige and her group do a fantastic job in terms of mosquito control. So in addition to that breakfast meeting, any of the information that you really be looking for concerning mosquito control, including notification that you can request relative to the spraying program that mosquito control is involved with. All of that information is available on the website.
Did everybody, did we ask for their emails, by the way, when you signed in? No. I would like some information, this information be sent out to everyone that signed in to their municipalities, so they have her information immediately, and
We'll send a sheet around her.
okay.
And you just provide us with our email, we'll make sure we get it.
And possibly a follow-up with the future topics or how this meeting went. I just want to say something about mosquitoes. I have a new dog, adopted dog from Hawaii, and he likes to go outside, except he doesn't want to go outside. And I used to walk him off the deck, and I get bit up, and so I don't do that anymore, but every time I send him to go off the deck to go to the bathroom, he just looks at me like, do I really have to go out there? This has been a horrible meeting, mosquito year, and at one point I was involved in that group, and it's one of those things that that we just, I don't want to say people have to put up with, because I get a lot of emails with that, but it's just unfortunate that this is probably the wettest summer that we have ever had, and so you're getting things hatching out there that have been in the ground for many years. But one of the things that, aside from spraying, that the Mosquito Commission, the word that really doesn't get out there is those containers that are sitting out there. Even though, you don't want to go out in humidity, if the public and everybody just remembers that, and when people call you about this, going to say, hey, make sure the buckets and everything's empty. I mean, she could really elaborate on how many mosquitoes in a small can develop. That's one of the things, and hopefully you could talk to the public, and hopefully you have on your website, if someone, a little thing that says mosquito, that you can bounce over to the mosquito website, so when somebody clicks on that, and they can get that information. And so don't call me, because I'm not the expert. Please call the mosquito division, but I think they'll get the information out to you.
Maybe from a municipal standpoint, one of the most important things is if you have vacant properties and you have pools that are abandoned, contact mosquito control so they're aware that we can do certain things with those properties. So we need to know about them. So if you think we don't know about it, or even you're not sure, contact Paige or her group, and we can do certain things.
Well, Paige is here. Paige, I'm going to ask you a question.
I knew you would.
You knew you would. Do you go out and treat like stagnant bodies of water?
Yes.
Okay. And so if in your community, what should they do? Call you?
Yes, we can go on private properties and handle standing water, and we also can handle state land, and we can handle the wetlands part of things as well. So not just the container things, we can handle wetlands. We advise that we take control of that and not homeowners.
And the other thing is that the mosquito control is driven primarily by complaints. We start getting a lot of complaints from an area, so it's important that your residents, they may call you and complain, say, hey, make sure you call and file a complaint with mosquito control. You can do it on the website or by phone, because that's how they gather the information to say, let's target this area or that area. So it's important to pass that information up the chain.
On a good note, residents that have questions about mosquitoes, and I call mosquito control, usually it's followed up with, wow, they came, they were here. So that's usually been the response that I've gotten from
Could you take 2 seconds and make a comment about the toxicity of the spraying? Because every time they want to come into town and spray, there's always one person in the middle of the neighborhood who doesn't want anything sprayed around their property because their child.
Their own views and opinions on that. As far as mosquito control goes, our products are low toxicity, and the meshes that we apply our pesticides are ultra low volume. So both of those things equal low toxicity to the environment and to contamination on people's properties, and even into the water.
They also have a very short half-life in the order of 15 minutes to 2 hours, meaning that half the product is gone within 15 minutes to 2 hours.
It dissipates very quickly.
Yeah.
I recommend you stay indoors for an hour while we're spraying, and you can return
And
afterwards.
when the airplanes fly over parts of Hopatcon and Vernon and other areas, what's coming out of the plane? Is that a toxic chemical? Or?
No, it's a BTI granular. It's a bacteria-infused corn cob, and it's applied to the water. It's not a liquid.
Okay. So when people say, hey, the airplane dumped chemicals in the sky, they're not doing this. The corn cob product with the mosquito.
At least not the
I'm taking
mosquito
your
commission, right?
What?
That's the other airplanes.
The other airplanes. But so that information, if you get a call on that, please direct them to the mosquito commission, because it's important that we keep that mosquito
that
population down.
Some of that product is considered mosquito, so that's kind of what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Just wanted to also mention, the Division of Health hosts monthly conference calls on the second Wednesday at 10 a.m., open to all of the municipalities. So the next one is Wednesday, September 12th at 10 a.m. So just mark that down, and I'm sure the Division of Health deals with different topics each month, so I'm sure it's helpful for you to be on the conference call. The last thing I just wanted to mention, which is also in your packet, is there is a transportation.
That's the third last thing.
Yes, it is the last thing, sorry. There is a transportation public hearing on September 18th at 12 o'clock. It is in your packet. If you could please take this poster and hang it in your municipal building if possible, just to encourage your residents, if they're in need of transportation services, to attend, and they can give testimony on the need here. That is it. Thank you.
Okay, I would just like to add that in your orange folder, you will find that there is a business card down here with the name Carol Moffett. She is the head of our Human Services and Health. If you have any questions and you don't have time to run through the website or to do all the things that we mentioned, please call Carol. She can direct you to all of the services that we have. We also work very closely, and we partner with a lot of 501(c)s. So if the county doesn't offer it, we can usually find another service somewhere else that will offer it. What we don't want you to do is turn someone away until you have called Carol. You would be surprised. I was surprised. Because I know as a mayor, what I did is I only used it as I needed it. I didn't realize the array of services that were there. And sometimes you can find different services that you don't even know that you need. And when you hear, they say, wow, I could really use that. So, if you want to have a cup of coffee and sit down with Carol sometime, it might be a good idea too, because there is so much that you offer here, and our department staff is just excellent at what they do. So they can really help you out in this company.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next we have Will Porter, the Library Director.
Hi, some of you may remember me from hectoring you on the phone a couple months ago about attending a meeting that we had. I won't do that again, at least not for a while. There are kind of a lot of new things at the library these days, and one of them is me. I've been there for about a year, and what I'm trying to do is sort of take the opportunity to really examine our services, really think about how they're working, how they're not working, and how we could be adapting them to sort of make them work better for our communities. And so that was sort of the driving force behind that. To that end, we did a survey. We got almost 1,700 responses from county residents. We had some community meetings in our various libraries to really sort of hear from the people who use that particular library, and then we had that meeting to hear from the municipalities in the area. So I appreciate it. I understand that, you know, day to day, sometimes you actually do have more pressing concerns than what the county library wants to hear from you. But I appreciate you tolerating that for me for a little while there. So we've got a few key takeaways already, and we're looking at implementing some minor changes going forward. One of which is we're working on expanding hours of service. Honestly, that sort of predates some of the surveys, and we've been working on that all year. Right now, we're going through the process, and some time constraints, including but not limited to waiting for civil service processes, is slowing us down on that front. We are looking at offering expanded hours of service, and also to continue to improve in the appearance and comfort of our facilities. So what's going on right now that I think is exciting at the library, is we at the main library just opened what we're calling the Business and Project Center. We've got a poster and banner printer. There's sort of a sample up there of the kind of thing you can build, you can print there. Paper's on a roll, so it can be much longer than that. We don't yet have the sort of the final banner material, but we will be able to offer sort of printing something a little more durable like that as well.
Can towns take advantage of that?
Towns can take advantage of that, and can feel free to refer local business and residents to us as well. Right now, while supplies last, there's no charge for this. We've got an ordinance pending so that we can recover the cost of the consumables eventually. But the idea is to make available that. We've got a die cutter, so you can cut out shapes like letters, animal shapes, things like that. For you know, our children's department uses a lot to make crafts for kids, but really you can do all sorts of sign making and things with it. And a laminator as well, sort of available for public use, and that can be, you know, we originally envisioned it as largely a resource for local business, but we're finding also that we're hearing from parents and children, this is going to be great for school projects and things like that. So if it seems to you that that could be something that's useful to your office, you know, maybe you've got some sort of initiative you could use a big sign for, by all means, let us know. And feel free
please
to
pass that on to the recreation departments too. I mean, I could see them utilizing this thing to really good effect.
And this is at all libraries?
No, this is currently based in the main library in Frankfort Township, so just outside Branchville there. And so we've got a couple of those resources there. We've also got an ongoing Career Connections program that's grant funded with the state. We've got a really excellent person who is sort of spearheading that in our library. She goes to our various libraries. She's available by appointment for one-on-one consultation. She does resume writing workshops. She interfaces with some of the other state employment agencies and such. You know, we'll do classes. They did some mock interviews, had local businesses with the actual people who would be doing a real interview for that kind of job there, so that job seekers could get some practice and some experience with what kind of, and that was a really successful event. Some of the feedback we're getting from the people who've used the service is just really remarkable. It's really moving to hear, you know, from people, you know, I felt so supported by the library through this process, and now I have a job, and you know, the degree of satisfaction that that's bringing to my life is really hard to express, is, you know, the kind of thing that we're hearing. And then one thing that's sort of coming is we are going to be partnering with Project Self-Sufficiency to offer locations for them to provide part of the education component of their forthcoming Healthy Women, Healthy Families grant that they received. And so, you know, it sort of lines up with our educational mission in the community to provide space for, you know, local nonprofit entities like that to you know, be able to provide a, you know, an available public space for that kind of educational activity. So we're really looking forward to that. That's all I've got for now, so I'll stop there.
Okay, thanks. I just let the record reflect that Freeholder Graham entered the dais at 10:25 p.m. a.m. It's not that late yet. Any questions for Will?
Yeah, I got a quick question for you. You know, I've supported and used the library my entire life. I'm sure that the internet represents some interesting challenges for you today. As far as the viability of this library system, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
That's a really great question, and it's something that sort of we in my line of work are sort of still in the process of finding our way through. But we're finding that it's much more an opportunity than a crisis, which is
Really?
what it kind of seemed like it could be at first. There was a time, really 10 years ago or so, where a number of us were looking at this and thinking, that does a lot of what we do, and so the way that it has shaped the way that libraries have shaped themselves and have moved through the last 10 years or so has been really interesting to watch. There was a very long time where the only way to answer certain kinds of questions was to have a large collection of large, expensive books and a cohort of highly educated people to know how to use those books and refer you to which one. And that for a long time was kind of the center of gravity of public library operations, and everything else kind of had to orbit around that. And what we're finding there is that the self-service sort of basic research function of the internet has really taken a lot of pressure off of us to do that and freed us up to focus on a lot of other priorities in the library that frankly over the very long term kind of got short shrift. Early literacy. A lot of libraries have always had that as like a core thing that we do, but it was always secondary to, but we got to maintain this, because one of these days we're going to get a question from a guy who needs to answer a bar bet or something like that, and we're only going to be able to find it in this book, and only Dave over there knows how to find it in that book. And so, so what it has been really is pretty liberating for us in a lot of ways, to emphasize a lot of the other stuff that was always important that we do, but just kind of always had to take a backseat to that primary function. Early literacy sort of being key among them. Providing just sort of a free public space where people can go and pursue their own self-guided education without having to justify their existence, is another function. There are not a ton of places where you can go to be somewhere that's not work or home without buying something, demonstrating why you're there, etc. And the library remains sort of a key one of those right now. So we're finding that as sort of a community center of civic gravity is sort of one function. The early literacy function is just so vital and so essential. We're able to channel a lot more resources to that nowadays.
Are you seeing more students use the library?
Yes, yeah, that's sort of the funny thing about it is we all, for a while there, were kind of waiting and thinking at some point we're not going to get as many people. And we're finding that we get more now. Actually, one of the examples that I think a lot of us didn't see coming was very often you can't even apply for an entry-level sort of first-time job with a pen and paper. A lot of us grew up in a context where when you wanted a first job, you walked down to the local gas station and said, gosh, I'd like to work, and they'd say, fill out this application and hand you a pen. And now what they do is they say, great, our application is online. If you don't live in a house that has a computer with internet access, that just changed your access to that job. And so one of the functions that we're finding we're providing a lot is just a means for people, be it sort of late career people who are finding themselves changing jobs, be it kids or seniors who are retired and find that they just want to do something part-time in their spare time, but have not really been sort of people who spend a lot of time or interest on the internet in their lives. We're providing an access point for them to a host of things that used to be just the kind of thing you would interact with.
Thanks.
One thing, when I ran for freeholder, I must confess that I said, there's a couple million we cut out of the budget almost immediately, just get rid of the libraries, we got the internet now. And when I came in, I did find, one of the first things surprising to me is that traffic at libraries is actually up over the last decade. It's just, completely opposite what you'd expect. But the reason for the traffic is changing, and that's part of what Will is doing with those 1,700 surveys we received back, is to start to look at how we can transition into that future of libraries, and we'll be looking, I think in the capital committee, we're probably looking at what we can do with that in coming 20 years.
I'm going to start with what he started with. I was exactly the opposite. I grew up in the city, and libraries was my little sanctuary away from what was going on in the world. And as I saw, I think somebody said something to me years ago that you can't Google everything, and you can't. Libraries are more than just a sanctuary for information. They'll also become community centers, and that's what we're trying to leverage right now. And also the expansion, when we say expansion of libraries, doesn't mean that we're putting more brick and mortar in. But one of the things I was discussing with Mayor Rubenstein just the other day, and that was that I take a lot of travel, and I download a book onto here, an audio book. I was supposed to be in Virginia today, but Director Rose called a meeting. So anyway, I will be going to Virginia later today, and I'll be spending 6 hours on the road between here and Richmond, and I will be reading the book regarding Robert Kennedy. So that gives me the ability to drive, learn, and I don't even miss the library. And that's because, like you said, instead of being afraid of the technology, you embraced it and you've grown with it. Thank you.
Yeah, Freeholder Graham makes a great point. I'll pay you later. But he makes a great point though, and although my experience with driving to Richmond is that 6 hours might be optimistic. But he makes a great point. We have a lot more resources that are available without actually having to bring yourself physically to the library. And so the cloud library app that you referred to is one of them. You install it on your phone, takes a few seconds out of the App Store, you look up the Sussex County Library System in there, type in your library card number, and you have access from anywhere you can get a signal to our continually growing collection of ebooks and downloadable audiobooks, which I agree are fantastic for a long drive.
Any more questions for Will? Will, thank you. Bill Kopenall, County Engineer.
Good morning. Had the pleasure of working with many of you over the duration of my career at the county. Wanted to spend a little bit of time this morning, and this is probably repetitive because of the relationships we've maintained, but within the information that you have, I put together some quick points of interest. We certainly try to maintain a very open dialogue and working relationship with all of the towns. I think it's important for us to continue to do that, and we certainly try to be responsive to the calls, concerns, and questions that we get. The staff is always available by phone, normal business hours, 7 to 3:30. One of the things that I put in here that I'm not sure many people are aware of is also on our website, you have the ability to put in the whole public has access to this, a service request or questions related to any of the transportation infrastructure that we're owning and operating and maintaining. So it's certainly, that information can be put in 24 hours a day. It is emailed over to our department, as soon as the requester submits it, and we will get it on the next business day. And we try to be very responsive in reviewing requests and providing at least a response that we've received this and that we will be, working on it in a priority fashion.
So there might just if I can jump in here, it might be an opportunity for you to take your websites and to link to that page if you have county routes within your jurisdiction, and then just say if it's on a county route, you click here to file a complaint or a request for repair or something like that.
So I'm sure that everybody's aware of our working relationship in that respect. A couple of the things that you may not be aware of is we also have through the department a signed fabrication shared services agreement that is available. We have a digital print shop that has historically been maintained by the county, really transportation related. Through that facility, we have extended that ability out to the municipalities. We work with a number of you already. We probably have agreements with about 12 to 14 different municipalities for sign fabrication. The shop is located right over in Lafayette. It's centrally located. we can generally turn around, requests, particularly specialized requests, in, relatively short periods of time. So I know that's one of the areas that a lot of towns have taken advantage of this opportunity on.
So Bill, if you don't have an agreement with the county to do sign fabrication, you should probably get one in place, even if you're not going to necessarily use it right now, but just to have it in case you ever needed us to produce signs. So contact Bill, he'll get you an ordinance, and then we'll start the process on our end, and we'll get it approved through the freeholder board so that we can fabricate those signs.
Yeah, so just to back up a second, this includes all the contact information for our department and the things that I'm going to touch on briefly this morning. So the phone numbers are in here, the mailing address, the email addresses. We're available through a variety of venues as far as contacting, but certainly calling during normal business hours is the best thing, and we can have somebody working with you very quickly on some of these things. I'm sure most of you are aware of the way that the county manages events and construction within the right-of-way through our road opening, access, and highway occupancy permit processes. There are no fees for these permits for the municipal governments. If you're not aware, I'm sure we have reoccurring permits with many of the towns already. We have an individual, a road opening inspector assigned to the management of this particular program, and we try to be very responsive to the needs, particularly the emergent needs that may arise at a municipal level. Related to that, and one of the areas that I think that you could certainly help us, would be, we try to convey and disseminate public information on any of the transportation projects that we have that are going to be impacting, the residents or the local communities. One of the things that would help us significantly would be if we could kind of get some advance notice on the local municipal projects that you have queued up for, a current year of particular interest. And one of the things that we generally find is that we will get a call from, the public works manager or the municipal engineer saying, hey, we've got this particular project slated, we're going to be resurfacing this road, it's scheduled for a week and a half from now, and by the way, you have a bridge in the middle of the road. So what we do is we try to go out and make sure that if there's anything in the queue that we need to do to that bridge, we get it completed prior to the work that you're going to be doing on resurfacing the road. And the more advanced notice we have on that, the better we are at accommodating those specific needs. The last thing I want to do is have a municipality go out and resurface a road and then find out that, wait a minute, we have a repair scheduled on that bridge for a month from now, and we're cutting up a newly placed asphalt roadway. So there's a coordination issue there. And the other thing that many of you may not be aware of, but during the course of those overlays, it is very common for our in-house crews to go out and put waterproof membrane systems on those bridges. So we will actually coordinate with the town and your contractors. So while the work is progressing, just before the final wearing surface is put on the road, our crews will go out and put the waterproof membraning on. So if we know that need in advance, it's very easy for us to coordinate, but if it's a last minute request, it's much harder for us to kind of shuffle crews and potentially acquire the materials that we need to do it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to.
Property markers. When the construction is going on in municipality, county, or whatever, most everybody has paid at least one time for their property markers. But when construction goes on, there's nothing on the item list that pays for replacing property markers or for replacing PKs any place at all. And I was wondering why that has gone unnoticed by a lot of people. And also what brought to mind when we put Route 80 through Stanlow and that Metcon area, we did have a lawsuit by several people on the same street that their property markers had been removed, and thankful for just a change order, it was taken care of. But I didn't want to go to the municipal level about it because I'm sure they would refer me to you. And what can be done about replacing property markers when there's construction going on and when it's completed? Like I say, the first thing on the item list is what mobilization, which is a biggie. And you can go through everything and there's nothing about replacing property markers that a contractor should put in his bid price to have the job covered so it doesn't fall on the responsibility of the municipality or the county. So I was wondering what your take is on that.
So the way the county manages that is during the initial phases of the design development process, we will go out and do surveys to establish the rights of way that the county has, in ownership or easement. And as part of that process, it includes adjacent property surveys to locate and identify any property markers that may be existing within the work limits of the project. It's typically not done by the contractor, it's typically done by a professional surveyor. What we will then do is, as the project progresses and is completed, the right of way, the county will typically come back and re-monument or replace markers that were destroyed or removed during the course of the project. The other thing that happens is if there are markers that we're aware of that are within the scope of the project but wouldn't otherwise be disturbed by the project, so we wouldn't, would not be planning on replacing them, there are provisions put into the contract that if the contractor, disturbs or destroys those particular markers, then the onus would fall back on them for the replacement of them.
So is this something, if it happens, should the homeowner contact the county? How was the...
So yeah, certainly. I mean, if there's something that's going on, and at the conclusion of a at any point in the process, a homeowner or any of the towns, if you get a concern like this, you can reach out to us so we're aware of it. Usually, at least from a county perspective, the same way that we try to coordinate these projects at the local levels with all of the towns, so that you're aware of what we're planning to do within your municipality. We also have an outreach program to all of the adjacent property owners. So we will go out if it's a construction project where we're going to be disturbing areas outside the existing paved surface. We'll go out and we'll work with the adjacent property owners. Normally, we end up acquiring additional easements or rights away from adjacent owners. But we keep an open dialogue with all the adjacent property owners as well.
Well, my present property was well marked by survey stakes, and now most of them are gone. But there's looking at any homeowner who goes to buy a piece of property, they want to know where the markers are. In fact, one house we had, the gentleman came back once a week for 6 weeks, and I just showed him where they were. But that's neither here nor there, but of course those are gone. The second house we had had stakes marked out and we had no problem. But the fact is, are you going to pay for property surveys before you get in and then after you want to sell it yourself? That's why I brought it up.
Well, like I said, we certainly try to identify and locate the right of way and the adjacent property boundaries at the design development phase of this, and then we'll go through after the fact, and anything that we've identified, we either verify that it continues to be marked or monumented, or we replace or put in new monuments and markers. Really, from an adjacent property perspective as well as a public ownership perspective. So it's understood moving forward what the public rights of way are.
Well, in that, like I said, in that area down by Acorn Street down in Stanley, the property owners there were always very good with us. We worked right along with them and so forth. But when that topic came up, like I said, we did cover under a change order though. But anyway, thank you.
Now that was along a state highway, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Hess Brothers designed that.
Yeah.
And they had a young engineer that worked there at that time when I was out on the job by the name of Harold Pello.
Who? Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Bill.
the use of county roads, I don't know if there's anything that can be done, but River Road, which is County Road 521, runs through Montague. And over the past, I don't know, it's probably 2 years now since the toll was raised to be, it's like $28, I understand, for a tractor trailer to cross the bridge. So we've been seeing and getting continuing more complaints about tractor trailers using the river. So my question is there anything that can be done about that?
Can you place a weight restriction on it?
The county cannot place weight restrictions on county roads. So we don't have the same flexibilities that towns have to weight restrict roads to local deliveries. County roads are considered a part of the regional transportation system. So there are a couple of reasons or things that the county has the ability to do commercial vehicle restrictions based on. Obviously, it would be the load carrying capacity of a bridge structure. So if we have a bridge structure that is identified as not being able to manage all legal loads, the bridge will be evaluated and a rating will be developed, and then the bridge structure itself can be posted with that particular weight restriction, which then in and of itself, restricts the roadway in most cases. The other thing that we can do related to county roads is if there is a particularly severe condition that exists that would otherwise preclude the custom and ordinarily safe use of that roadway by oversized commercial vehicles, you can restrict the road to commercial vehicles. There's only two county roads that come to mind where we have those types of conditions in place. One of them is 519 up in Wantage, and there's no geometry deficiencies within the roadway itself, but what is actually the problem is that that road terminates at the New York State line, and when it goes into New York State, the New York State has a weight restriction on the road. So what it is considered is an entrapment or endangerment issue, because if a vehicle travels up, our county route 519 and gets to the New York State line and then tries to turn around, there's no safe mechanism under which he can do that, or the driver would be able to do that. So it constitutes a public safety concern. So we were able to restrict commercial vehicles in that particular case. And the other place that we have it is on 515 in Vernon, all the way from 23 down into Vernon Town Center, really because of the severe geometry of the hill coming down into Vernon Town Center on 515. So beyond that, there's not a lot of avenues that we have as a county government to further restrict or prohibit commercial vehicles from using any of our roads. We do have a reoccurring traffic data collection program where, we collect volumes, class, and speed of vehicles that are using the county roads. So we're able to monitor and compare modifications or changes in traffic patterns or classes of vehicles just from an understanding, and then it would back into design criteria for any improvements on the roadway.
Bill, what defines local delivery?
That's a great question. I don't know that I can actually provide an answer for that. I think it really falls into the purview of law enforcement and how they choose to define it. My understanding has always been a vehicle that the destination or origin is within a reasonable area of the roadway. So, in the case of Vernon, if the shopping center is getting a delivery, or any of the residents along the roadway who maybe are getting deliveries, oil or whatever the case may be, those are certainly local, or in my opinion would be local deliveries. It becomes a little grayer as you get out of the immediate area of the corridor. So particularly if they have other avenues where they could have traversed to get to their destinations.
Thank you.
Bill, a quick question, just to follow up on Gene's question. River Road does become South Maple Avenue in New York State, and it gets to a traffic light I just don't understand how these truckers are able to negotiate, once it's in New York State, in Port Jervis, New York, how they're able, I believe it's a safety hazard.
Do they jump on 284 there?
Well, they would have to make a right and then go up to 284.
That's how they escape.
So do they make a right or do they make a left and go out?
Well, they would get to the traffic light, which is, they call it the never sink river
Yeah,
and so forth.
I'm familiar with the
Okay,
location.
and they make a right at that light to go up to Route 84.
Route 84.
So maybe we can Port Jervis to put a weight restriction on their section of road, and that's your second
So,
condition.
so I'm not, I do not believe that when you get into Port Jervis, there's any restrictions on the local roads.
Well, I can find that out, and I will do the research on it.
Yeah,
but
I'm
let's
not
say-
aware of any.
If you can convince them to get a weight restriction, then we can do something.
Good.
And as
Okay.
far as the configuration of signal, you know, it really have to be reviewed closer because there are things you can do, particularly at signalized intersections, that would be able to accommodate the turn movements of oversized vehicles. You know, they set the stop bars back much farther so that the trucks can make the wider turns that they actually need. I'm not familiar with the specifics of that particular signalized intersection.
And also along River Road, near Old Mine Road Commons, there is a bridge. And a few years ago, that bridge was, it's obviously a county road, it was repaired by the county. So does that, you had mentioned something about bridges.
Yeah.
Is that something we can pursue at
Well,
the township committee level?
A restriction on the bridge? No,
Well, if the bridge had to be replaced a few years ago,
so
obviously
all of our bridges are inspected on a reoccurring basis. The bridges are generally divided into two classes. Minor bridges, which are structures that are 20 feet and under, and then they have nimbus structures, which are greater than 20 feet. And all of the nimbus structures are inspected on a 2-year cycle. It's through a DOT program. The county, they hire consultants. They work directly for the county through a DOT contract, and they go out and inspect and load rate or evaluate the bridge for potential deficiencies that would drive a revisiting of the load rating. Minor bridges are inspected on a longer cycle. Right now I'm anticipating it's going to be a 5-year cycle, but they as well are also evaluated for carrying capacities, and if a deficiency is identified in the structure, it is then back into whether it does or does not represent a carrying capacity of the bridge itself, and if it did, we would impose a weight restriction on the bridge.
will we have to wait 4 or 5 years? We couldn't request to the county that they evaluate that for weight restriction and then impose a weight restriction on the bridge as it is right now?
You certainly, if there is a concern that the town has with any of the bridge structures that are in our bridge management system, by all means, let us know as soon as you become aware of it, and then we will follow up to make sure that either the inspections are current or we will reassess, the conditions that are the deficiencies that you're concerned with. Although the state on the 2-year cycle and the minor bridges on the 5-year cycle, we have in-house engineering staff as well as in-house bridge crews that respond immediately to any potential concerns related to a bridge structure.
Just be aware, Paul, though,
Yes.
if we go out and evaluate a bridge and we can repair it, we're not going to weight restrict it. We're going to repair it up to maximum legal limits.
Right, but you've already, a few years ago, John, you did repair the bridge. And maybe because of all the trucker traffic, it would adversely impact the useful life of
I think
that
the route
bridge.
to go is to talk to New York about putting a weight restriction on their end,
Okay.
just as the shortest point from A to B.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah,
Anyway.
by all means, if any of you ever become concerned with the condition of a bridge, an immediate phone call is warranted. And
Well, the bridge is
we address those, they're a priority.
But the bridge is fine now. My concern is that with this added trucker traffic, the useful life of the bridge will diminish, and you'll end up having to replace the bridge sooner than later because of that additional overweight trucker traffic.
yeah, that's a legitimate concern, and it's one of the things that we monitor. Certainly, the use of these structures by heavier vehicles has a much more severe impact on the serviceability of the structure than if it was just passenger cars. So,
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, Bill, as you are aware, we have had, the county has had several conversations with the freeholders and yourself being present concerning a light on Hicks Avenue and Newton Sparta Road.
yes.
Are there any plans for doing that in the future?
There are no immediate plans for doing that. I think what we would have in our long-term objectives would be revisiting the original operations and safety study that was done on the Newton Sparta corridor. I expect that at some point what we will do is we'll break that corridor into smaller, if you will, more manageable segments, probably municipal based, and run them through the same type of operations and safety analysis that we did, a number of years ago. And at that point in time would be the first opportunity that I'm aware of that we would revisit that particular intersection.
There was grant money set aside through a state law about a year ago through Senator Oracle, but it's my understanding that law that was not passed, and so that grant money never came to us to look further at that Hicks Avenue light.
So what Jonathan is referring to is there was a supplemental appropriation of the TTF that was being considered through the legislature, and that particular intersection, for a number of reasons, was included in our short list of projects that went down for potential funding under that action. But to date, we haven't gotten any verification or responses on it.
Okay, because the main concern of the town is, of course, we've had several developers interested in developing the property on Hicks, but we cannot do that until a light or some situation is done to remedy that particular intersection.
That's
So
not
that's what
totally
I'm-
true, because the developer can assume, and should assume, some responsibility for developing that intersection. They're taking all the revenue out of it, then
That's true.
they certainly ought to have some responsibility of the roadway and the management of the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
I think the latest, the costs were over 800,000.
That's the last thing I heard, yeah.
Yeah, the costs were, because
which is
we based those estimates on the original conceptual designs that were developed as part of the operations and safety scoping program, which included that corridor and that particular intersection. And at that particular time, based on volumes of traffic, the right-of-way is rather constrained right there, so part of the cost was certainly acquisition of right-of-way to acquire the space that you would need to get a left turn median lane in on Newton Sparta Road. It also, through the collaboration with the county, the designer, and the town, there was a conceptual design included both left and right exit lanes off of Hicks Avenue. You could probably roll that back, to significantly reduce the cost of it, but I still think you're probably in the $500,000 to $600,000 ballpark when everything is said and done on it. I think from an operation and safety perspective, my recollection was that the bulk of the concern at that particular intersection was really a level of service more than driven by crash records or anything, because particularly coming out of the Hicks Avenue leg of it, you had a very low level of service because of delayed wait times, really because of the differences in volume of traffic. So, and I think what Carl was alluding to is, if a developer came in and made a proposal, it would certainly go through the normal planning process, and as it went through the planning process, they would then go through and do an existing conditions traffic study, a site developed traffic study, and then a projected study, and then they would identify potential contributions or fair share contributions that could be applied towards an upgrade of that intersection. But that would all be really developed through the planning process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. We've had a bridge out, and I know that Freeholder Lazaro has thankfully been working on this Pewter Road.
Next year.
Oh, that's all we hear every meeting.
Yeah,
That's right.
He talks about it all the time. He
Well,
starts every conversation with
well,
Pewter Road.
That's a good thing.
I already have the sign made naming the bridge.
Is that right? I just thought I would ask, you know.
So, we're aware of it. It's one of 3 bridges that we currently have closed within the county's bridge management system. And it is in our capital queue,
Capital Q.
As I suspect you understand, we have a very lengthy capital queue. And it competes with a number of other bridges and priority projects, including projects that otherwise may get prioritized because of available funding. So through the reapplication or renewal of the Transportation Trust Fund, the county gets specific allocations through a local bridge funding program. The local bridge funding program there's only a subsection of our bridge structure that is actually eligible for that particular funding source. So, those projects get prioritized and move forward, because if we don't use or allocate the money, we forfeit it.
Let me just take a minute in defense of...
Oh my God, you started on Peter Road.
When I first started here, I worked with the roads and bridges since I started this caper. And let's get in there and fix it. Well, one of the first things we did was take a bus tour of every bridge in the county. We went and looked at every one of them. You wouldn't believe what you're looking at and what you're driving over if you got underneath and looked underneath at them. You wouldn't drive over that bridge ever again. and Bill sat there in the bus nodding his head up and down. Yeah, it is bad, and it's worse than bad. So what they did was they set up a prioritized list of bridges that needed to get done, and they have picked them off one at a time, down. Now, you'll see bridges being repaired, replaced, and all this extra stuff being added onto it. That's not because they want them to look prettier than they were when they started. It's because the state changes the requirements for what a bridge will be done every year. So a perfectly good guardrail gets ripped up because it's 3 to 6 inches off what the state wants it to be, and a new one is put in. And my question has always been, who owns the concession for the guardrails? Because they constantly get changed. But that's the process that the county has to go through when they replace these bridges, and that may mean running guardrails another mile down the road to replace it, which is all dollars and cents. And as you know, the prevailing wage drives the cost of every bridge up by hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's incredible. So they prioritized all these bridges and have, to their credit, been picking them off one at a time based on what we have available for funds, what we have available to get from the state funds, and that's separate from funds that we get that are dedicated for projects, like we get funds that are dedicated to paving. So you're seeing a lot of paving get done. We got funds for paving, so now we're picking off roads and paving each road as they go along. So this department works just tirelessly maintaining the infrastructure of the county, and that's one of the major functions of county government, is to maintain a good infrastructure that people can move around, because you got to get out of here to get to work, and you got to get back in. And to their credit, they've done an admirable job in doing that and upkeeping everything, and I just wanted you to be complimented on that.
But you damn well better get Puda roads on those.
And just to back up on that, Carl was after Puda Road long before he started, as you call this caper. Puda Road was I think it was one of the first things that Carl said to me. He said, Puda Road.
Me too.
Any other questions for Bill?
Puda Road.
Any other questions for Bill? Just a bit of trivia before we move on to Melissa. They are guide rails, not guardrails. I saw Bill wincing up there as Carl called them guardrails. Thank you, Bill. Melissa Rockwell, Tax Administrator.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am your tax administrator. I'm from the County Board of Taxation, and today with us also is the president of the board in the back of the room, John Fiaro. And basically, I'm going to be brief because I know you've been here long and we've gone over. Many of you I have seen in my office. You've come to visit us at the tax board, and we have come and visited some of you at your offices as well. So we're never adverse to taking our show on the road. We are all about education on the property tax system. It seems to be one of those mysteries that nobody really wants to understand. You know, and it also comes along with that stigma that we're the bad people. If you look, we gave you a little flyer today. There is one typo, so I will bring that to your attention. On here I have the rates and ratios of each of the 24 municipalities within the county. If you look at these, and the ratios are on the right-hand side, so the rate is correct, and the one that is, it says 2 rates, well, obviously, the second column are your ratios. One of the missions of the County Board of Taxation is to make sure that everybody is paying their fair share and that it is distributed uniformly and equally. So to prove that, if you look at the ratios, pretty much all of the ratios within Sussex County are above or close to 90%, which is really good. What that means is that you're all basically paying equalized the same. Okay, so that's a good thing. Everybody's carrying their own weight is really what it boils down to, which I'm very proud of. Pretty much we are the overseers of your municipal assessors. We are the direct supervisor of your municipal assessor. So obviously if you have any questions or concerns about your municipal assessor, I would be the one that you would want to come and talk to. Or I will come and talk to you. And again, like I said, if you ever have any other questions on anything that we do more than just tax appeals. We also strike your tax rates. The tax rates basically is what is struck to support your budgets. And pretty much everybody here submits a budget to me, except for the schools. They're not here today, which are the biggest portion of our budgets, of our tax rate. So the assessors, and basically what this office does is we manage the biggest part of your revenue in your municipality. So we like to we take our job very seriously, and like I said, anytime that you want us to come to you to discuss anything that we can do, or you can come to us, and we're all about education and being approachable. Any questions? Good.
No questions?
Do you want any more? Do you have another copy?
I do, right here.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
And finally, last but not least, we have Elke Yetter, spelled with an E but said with an A, not Elke.
Thank you.
Almost as bad as saying guardrail.
That's a guide rail or a guardrail?
Guide rail. I never used that.
So I was appointed county treasurer July 9th. I've been here two months. Worked with many of the departments and started working with the freeholders. And I am in charge of treasury and library services. So Will actually spoke on behalf of my department because the only thing other that you would, as a municipality, be interested in, besides the library, would be getting your bills quarterly from me, which I'm sure it's the last thing you want to pay when you have other priorities, but it helps fund our government, and we're going to start working on our 2019 budget, and that should be an interesting task. We also manage a lot of the grants, accounting for the grants. We have a lot of grants through social services and through our sheriff's department and jail. And that is about all I have.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, we have come to the end of our meeting. I just have one other thing. We have some seats available, or seats open on some county boards. Do you have a list? Do you know off the top of your head?
We have opportunities on the Open Space Committee, I believe the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Those are the two
Yeah.
that we're...
Yeah,
The ag board.
And the ag board.
And the Board of Taxation.
I think we have a immediate applicant here.
We don't appoint that one. And there are 2 vacancies on the Board of Taxation, although it doesn't come through the county. If you know of people who would want to serve on these boards, please let me or a freeholder know, and we will get the people appointed. It's actually very difficult to find people who want to serve at the county level, even though a lot of these boards are little known but very powerful. Any more questions? Is there anything that you'd like to tell the Freeholder Board, and that we can help you with? I heard one suggestion about county, from Harry. But I heard, I heard from you about, a county weights and measures thing we can look into, for road weights, we can look into that. Is there anything else? Go ahead, jump in.
Sorry that Dan Freed wasn't here, who does the records management. About 7 years ago, 8 years ago, the county and the town municipalities joined together to make application for the Paris grant, which was the records grant, and that helped fund Dan's project where he's doing all the record scanning. And I've been asking, and I really would like if you guys could start a shared service. The cost to start up a records management program is around $40,000 per municipality. We cannot fund that. The state has gotten rid of the Paris grant, so that money is no longer available. And you have a staff already in-house. Dan has said to us that he has finished scanning all of the records that were archived, and now his staff is only scanning the day-to-day records. So that should, I'm hoping, free up some staff time that we could get shared services, that we could do that, because like I said, the cost is well beyond our capacity to be able to afford to start a record scanning program on a municipal level. Most of the towns are much too small and our budgets are too tight to be able to put that money together. And to have that resource, I've had it in my other county. The county did do a shared service. It made a huge difference for us because, people come and go, so like we lose our staff and that institution of memory walks out the door, but the memory is gone, but the minutes, resolutions, and ordinances are there. And by having the opportunity, just even if all the minutes of the towns were scanned, it would really help us be able to find records. Sometimes, especially on the county level, there's like county roads that we've done joint projects with, and then the question is, well, who was supposed to maintain the median, or who was going to take care of the sidewalk? And it takes hours and hours and hours of searching for us to try and find these records, and sometimes they're never recovered because you're looking past 40 years worth of records and you have to go through meeting minutes by hand. So if we could get a shared service for that, it would really be helpful.
Okay, we will look into that. That's a great suggestion.
Comment on that, because it's exactly what I was going to say. I've been saying this to you guys for some time, that there might be there's all this discussion about consolidation, shared services, whatever you want to call it, whatever buzzword. But there seems to me to be an opportunity at the county level for a municipal services bureau where you guys can start looking at things, and this is we're certainly one of the buyers interested because we're like buried under filing cabinets and boxes of files. And, we just had to look back for a quick approval for planning board in the past week for 1995, and it took hours to find it. But it goes to other things like tax assessment, tax collection, God forbid I say fire districts and police departments. And there's a huge gamut of services that every municipality is duplicate of. I'm not saying it kind of becomes the answer to all that, but there should at least be a forum to start these conversations. And to me, there's certainly some clear things that are low-hanging fruit that can be resolved. But I think we need the county to sort of start this process and get the conversation going. Because I know a lot of municipalities are doing shared service or this or that, like we do Netcom construction and that sort of thing. But those are just like little bites. There's, I think, an opportunity at the county level for you guys to really do this in a meaningful way. Just my opinion. But
just so you're aware, Mayor, there was at one time a shared services coordinator employed by the county. Yeah, that's right. And that position had been funded much like Dan Freed with Paris grant monies, and when those monies evaporated, those grant monies from the state evaporated, so did that position. So there certainly is precedent to have staffing resources to work with municipal governments. So maybe that's something that we can discuss as well. Because the county, while it's certainly a much larger operation than any one municipal government, the county is operating at a much reduced in terms of its staffing levels, not unlike what you find at the municipal government. So, I know you walk into the administrative center, you go, geez, there's all these people here, and probably people sitting around, wondering what to do. I can assure you that that's not the case. And I think your point is well made, is that if we can identify some resources where we could engage with the 24 municipalities, there certainly are plenty of opportunities that we might be able to, to work towards, achieving some economies of scale and recognize savings for our taxpayers.
Well, the funny thing is, I don't suggest this necessarily as a money-saving scheme. I suggest this as a betterment of service.
Yeah, well, and I think the two may go hand in hand. Yeah.
I think we might be moving into that direction anyway, because just in the last month, Senator Orho, Sweeney, and Sarlo came out with a list of consolidation measures. I don't know if everybody's read this. If you haven't, look it up, read it, because there's a lot of implications to Sussex County. Not all good. A lot of them are something that's going to have us change the way that we think about things. Everything from school boards all the way up to, like you said, consolidation of services, including public safety. So I think you should take a look at it, because weighing in on it, saying it's a great idea, there's a lot of moving parts in it. But one of what you're saying is probably very prominent in there.
Well, and realize I'm not necessarily saying the county might be the answer. Like, in our town, we have Lakeland Emergency Squad, and they serve 3 municipalities, right? They do a great job. So maybe the county should recognize, for instance, that model works and expand, let them somehow facilitate them to expand upon the model. I'm not suggesting necessarily the county becomes the ambulance squad. Right?
No, but
identify these things.
When you talk about Keith Armstrong, this goes back to, and those of that have been around in government for a long time, we remember when this was going on back around 2000, 2005, 2008, something like that. We don't have the authority to do a lot of these things. There's bigger authorities. We have an administrative code and we have statutes that we follow under. So even for us to say that we offer shared services, they fall into the purview of what we can provide. Like there have been discussions in the past about providing shared services for IT services. But when we think about that, that sounds like a great idea. We have a larger IT department and then all your towns need something else. But then we have to expand on what we bring in and who we bring in. And then that creates its own silo of services that now our budget starts to creep upwards, even if we're bringing in revenue. So, and we have to answer for that every year. Now, our budget went up by $300,000. Why did it go up by $300,000? Well, we have a shared service that we're providing, that we're bringing in $300,000. But you don't look at both sides of the balance sheet when you're, the voter. And that's what we have to do. If there's just my opinion, this is not even Freehold, just as an elected official that I've been for quite a while, is that if there's an impetus for us to make the change from the top down, look, the county should be more involved in it, I'm all in favor of it. But I'm not in favor of us starting shared services because one person who happens to be a director in a department wants to expand his department, and now he's brought in all these shared services. We've had that in the past. We've pushed back. I pushed back on expanding some shared services because well, I'm going to mention one word, a 5-letter word, solar. We know what happened with that. Let's do this. It's a great thing, great idea for everybody. And in the end, it became a massive burden for all of us. So I just want to be cautious about these shared services.
I agree with you.
But some of those services that you might be talking about really might belong between a back on Stanhope and Byram.
Oh, agree.
Yeah, and those over the years, I mean, I've spoken to Skip when I was mayor about consolidating police and road. We've had those conversations, but the need and the I don't want to say not an attitude, but just the comfort of having it locally overpowered the idea of combining. But now it's a different time.
Well, that's part of it. It's a different time, but I think there are some services that you'll have that resistance, home rule, and I get that. But there are certain services that are, I don't want to say invisible, but not in the mind of the taxpayer, that are probably much easier, perhaps wasteful, to get started with. And I think once you can start demonstrating that, hey, we did this successfully, now let's look at the harder things.
But they used to be one borough, both
No, I know.
towns. So, now when you look at them, they make sense to look together.
Well, it's a whole separate conversation of ridiculousness.
So could we get our share of standing for what we pay for our 911 that we don't utilize in our shared service? Just asking.
Why don't you just use the 911 system?
We have our own. We didn't ask for it.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, get rid of it.
You get rid of it.
We did.
We didn't ask for yours. But I'm just.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all for coming today, I really appreciate it. This is the first of, we're not sure whether we're gonna do this again, we need some feedback as to whether things are good. Now, we have to go through the rest of our meeting here, but feel free to talk or get up, there's still food out there. And we'll hang around for a little bit at the end if you want to talk to us one-on-one, or the department heads or whoever else. Public session from the floor, can I have a motion to open the? So moved. Second, motion by Patillo, second by Lazar. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Floor is open to the public. Any to the public? Seeing no one, I have a motion to close this meeting to the public. Motion by Lazar, second by Patillo. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The floor is closed to the public. Items 10 through 20, we have nothing to do there, so we'll skip them. Item 21, have another motion open. Motion by Graham, second by Patillo. Discussion. All those in favor? Those opposed? The ayes have it. Floor is open to the public. Motion to the public. Can I have a motion to close the meeting to the public? Motion by Graham, second by Patillo. Discussion. All those in favor? Those opposed? The ayes have it. Floor is closed to the public. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion by Lazaro, second by Patillo. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned.